So Mark Zuckerberg today announced that he is getting rid of fact checkers across Meta. So Facebook, Instagram, Threads, no more fact checkers. He's also changing the rules to make them less strict and so that they don't censor certain voices across these platforms. In this video, I'm going to tell you how you should start thinking about this problem and what you can do about it so that we can work on fixing it in the future. So first of all, if you haven't watched Mark Zuckerberg's video, I want to encourage you to go watch it because there's a lot of interesting stuff in there. You'll notice right away in the first few sentences that Zuckerberg has adopted the language and the framing of Donald Trump and Republicans. He points blame at the mainstream media and the public for talking about how disinformation was so damaging to our democracy. And he notes explicitly that he feels like the 2024 election was a cultural turning point for him, wherein people were really valuing freedom of speech. When people like Donald Trump and Republicans talk about freedom of speech, what they're really talking about is freedom from consequences. They want to be able to say and do anything but be free from the consequences. That's why they talk about getting canceled all the time. They're like, oh, the woke mob came for me. When in fact, they're just suffering the social consequences that have always been associated with being a bigot. For a lot of these people, the bigoted thoughts used to be in here, and they used to not come out of their mouth or out of their fingers on the keyboard. And the big difference between today and 20 years ago is now those quiet thoughts, they're saying them out loud. So whereas they used to not face social consequences, they are, because they're doing stuff, they're being bigoted in a way that they never have been before. So in addition to getting rid of the fact checkers, Zuckerberg says that he's also changing the rules, he's changing the policies. He's making it so that people can go after the LGBTQ community and immigrants in a way that they wouldn't have been able to, I guess, yesterday on these platforms. So Zuckerberg has developed all of this technology. And today's announcement is that you now work for him. If you're still using those platforms, and I still do, it's now your job to clean it up. But you're not getting compensated. So here's another billionaire who's exploiting free labor. Zuckerberg and all of the people like them would say, well, oh, you're free not to use these platforms. And sure, lots of people have deleted their accounts, and good for them. But it doesn't matter if you're not on Facebook or Threads or Instagram. These things still affect you because when disinformation infects the minds of your neighbors, you have to deal with their poor decision making that is based on lies. It doesn't matter if you're on Facebook. If your neighbor is joining a militia and going after a vulnerable population because that person's been fed lies about that vulnerable population. So yeah, we're free not to use these platforms, but we're not free from the consequences of Mark Zuckerberg's decisions. And Mark Zuckerberg's decision is to empower bigots and peddlers of disinformation who've done profound damage to our country, our democracy, and democracies across the world. The reason that we are seeing a surge in a global far right is because of social media. 25 years ago, if you wanted to write something down, get it published, and get it in front of somebody else, you had to go through an editorial process. And that editorial process made the editor, the publisher, liable for any lies, any disinformation, any libel or slander that you included in your writing. Well, because of a law called Section 230, an out-of-date law, social media companies are not considered publishers, and therefore they are not responsible for any of the content that anyone puts on it. So here's what we need to do to fix this. And this is a long-term thing. It's not going to happen overnight, and it's certainly not going to happen during the Trump administration. But when we start talking about disinformation, we need to start framing it in economic terms. One of the most eye-opening classes that I ever went to, I started college late, I think I was 28, I joined the Army, went to Iraq, had a rough time transitioning, was Economics 101, 102, where I learned about this thing called negative externalities. And the way that my professor explained it was, you live next door to a coal-burning power plant. You buy electric from that coal-burning power plant. The guy across the street from you, he wants to live in the Stone Age, doesn't believe in electric. Now you as a customer of that coal-burning power plant, you are getting a good and a service from them. You're paying them for it. But when they're burning that coal and it's right next to your house, you're getting clouds of smoke and smog into your property, into your lungs, and it's giving you and your kids, making you sick. And the person across the street who doesn't believe in electric, they're affected the same exact way. They're getting sick. All of their stuff is getting filthy because of this pollution. So how do we fix this problem? We provide an economic incentive. We tell that coal company that we, the people, have gathered together and formed a government, and we are going to tax and penalize you. We're going to pass regulations and laws to protect ourselves. We still need your service. We need your electric. And we're going to continue paying for it. But you are going to have to pay for the negative externalities that you are putting on us. That coal smoke, that smog, the illness, the dirtiness, the pollution, It is your responsibility as the producer to clean it up. Now, that coal company could say, oh, well, we're not the ones who are digging the coal out of the ground. We're not producing this dirty coal. We're just the ones processing it, turning it from coal to energy. That's what Section 230 is doing, is saying, well, the person who's processing all of the disinformation and putting it in your face, they're not responsible for it. It's the originators, the individual users who are responsible. So this is a real life thing. How do we fix these negative externalities by these big, powerful companies that we depend on for some things? Taxes and regulation. So again, I said this fix is not going to be simple and it's not going to happen soon. But we have control of our own information space. And the way that we are going to develop the conversation around this is we're going to keep talking about disinformation as pollution. It is polluting our information environment, and it is doing it in a way so that it affects everyone, not just Facebook or Meta users, not just people who are on X or Twitter. It affects all of us, everybody in this democracy, and in democracies across the world. So look, Mark Zuckerberg is going to be invited to the White House, and he's going to be having fun for the next 4 years. They're going to deregulate everything that they can. This Trump administration is hell-bent on giving corporations and billionaires as much power and money as possible. But we, the people, are going to work on changing the information space in a positive way. We're going to remind everyone that disinformation is pollution. And the people who are creating that pollution, they are ultimately responsible for cleaning it up. So after the Trump administration is gone, and one day it will be, we are going to have seeded the narrative that is going to drive political candidates towards adopting hard positions on this issue, in declaring that social media companies should be held responsible for the pollution that they are creating. And that means monetarily. We need to hold them accountable not just for the damage that they've caused, but also we need them to fund solutions to this problem. Democracies are suffering because media literacy is plummeting, and too many people just believe everything that they see or hear. So the biggest companies in the world, like Meta, we need to tax and regulate them so that they not only pay for the damage, but they serve as part of the solution.